When we speak of value, most people immediately think of what they can give to others, what they can contribute, or how they can be useful in the world. Yet, the true essence of value does not begin outside of yourself. It begins within. To value yourself first is not an act of arrogance, nor is it selfishness. It is the foundation upon which everything else in life is built. Without self-value, every relationship, every opportunity, and every dream becomes unstable, fragile, and easily broken. When you recognize your worth, you set the tone for how the world interacts with you. If you dismiss your value, you invite others to do the same. Value begins with awareness. Most people live disconnected from themselves, constantly seeking approval, validation, or acceptance from external sources. They run after compliments, achievements, or recognition, hoping that these things will prove their worth. But true value is never proven, it is simply realized. You cannot wait for the world to confirm that you matter. You must decide that you matter before anyone else does. When you carry that decision deep within, everything around you begins to shift. To value yourself means to understand that your time is precious, your energy is sacred, and your presence has weight. It means you no longer give yourself away cheaply to people, situations, or habits that drain you. Too often, people compromise their own dignity just to belong, just to be accepted, or just to avoid rejection. But belonging is not worth the cost of betraying yourself. Acceptance means nothing if it requires you to abandon your own truth. When you truly value yourself, you begin to see clearly that not every place deserves your presence, not every person deserves your loyalty, and not every demand deserves your energy. Value also means boundaries. Without them, you are like a house with open doors and no walls. Anyone can enter, take what they want, and leave chaos behind. Boundaries are not walls to keep others away, but they are doors you choose to open with awareness. They are the markers that say, my energy is not limitless, my time is not infinite, my emotions are not to be used carelessly. Boundaries are the physical expression of self-value, and when you enforce them, you send a clear signal to the world about what you will and will not tolerate. The act of valuing yourself first is also the act of saying no without guilt. No to what does not align, no to what feels heavy, no to what compromises your inner peace. People who struggle to value themselves often live trapped in the fear of displeasing others. They keep saying yes when their soul is screaming no. They carry the burdens of obligations that were never theirs to hold. But the more you live in this way, the more you shrink, the more you lose yourself, and the more you teach others that your value is negotiable. Learning to say no is not rejection, it is protection. Valuing yourself means giving attention to your growth, your healing, and your well-being. It is easy to pour endlessly into others while ignoring your own emptiness. It is easy to wear the mask of strength while quietly breaking inside. But self-value demands honesty. It asks you to pause, to look within, and to ask, what do I need right now? What do I deserve? What am I tolerating that is diminishing my spirit? These questions are not comfortable, but they are necessary. Because when you start answering them truthfully, you begin to restructure your life in a way that supports your worth rather than denies it. Self-value is not built overnight. It is cultivated daily through choices, habits, and perspectives. Every time you choose rest over burnout, you affirm your value. Every time you choose honesty over pleasing, you affirm your value. Every time you walk away from disrespect instead of staying silent, you affirm your value. These small acts are not insignificant. They are declarations of worth. And with each declaration, your inner foundation grows stronger. The deeper truth is that when you value yourself first, you actually give more to the world, not less. Because you are no longer operating from emptiness or resentment. You are not giving to prove your worth. You are giving because you are full, because you are aligned, because you are whole. People can sense the difference between someone who gives out of desperation and someone who gives out of abundance. One drains, the other inspires. One seeks recognition, the other radiates presence. To value yourself first is to stop chasing what was never meant for you. It is to stop begging for scraps of love, attention, or respect when you deserve the whole meal. It is to stop settling for less than what you know you are capable of receiving and becoming. And this shift does not require the world to change. It requires you to change. When you value yourself, the world simply adjusts to the vibration you emit. Self-value is also about forgiveness, especially towards yourself. Too often, we hold on to past mistakes, regrets, or failures, using them as evidence that we are unworthy. But your value is not determined by your past, nor is it diminished by your flaws. True self-value acknowledges imperfection as part of the journey. It embraces mistakes as teachers, not as punishments. When you forgive yourself, you reclaim the energy that was trapped in guilt and redirect it into growth. Finally, valuing yourself is about patience. In a world that constantly rushes, constantly compares, constantly demands speed, valuing yourself requires you to honor your own rhythm. It asks you to trust that your timing is not late, your progress is not slow, and your path is not less worthy because it looks different from others. Your value is not measured by the clock, by numbers, or by external applause. It is measured by your ability to stand firmly in who you are, regardless of who approves or who life teaches us again and again that the tighter we hold on to something, the more fragile it becomes. The instinct to cling is born out of fear, the fear of losing, the fear of emptiness, the fear of change. But this act of clinging suffocates both ourselves and what we are trying so desperately to hold on to. Imagine holding water in your hands. The tighter you close your fingers around it, the faster it escapes through the cracks. Only when the palms are open does the water remain, calmly resting in its place. This is the principle of creating space rather than clinging. When we cling, we create resistance, resistance to the natural flow of life, resistance to growth, resistance to transformation. Nothing in existence remains still. Energy moves, seasons change, relationships evolve, bodies age, and thoughts transform. To deny this movement is to create suffering within ourselves. To create space, however, is to allow what is meant to move, what is meant to stay, and what is meant to change. In this openness, there is peace. Creating space does not mean abandonment. It does not mean indifference. It is not a refusal to care. Rather, it is the highest form of care, for it respects the freedom of all things. Just as the roots of a tree hold the soil yet do not imprison it, creating space is about holding without controlling. It is about allowing without demanding. It is about being present without suffocating. True strength lies not in the grip, but in the ability to release and still remain centered. When the heart clings, it becomes heavy. Desires, attachments, expectations, fears, all of these accumulate like stones in a bag we carry on our backs. Each stone feels important, even necessary. But over time, the weight bends us, exhausts us, and dims our spirit. If you wish to walk freely, you must put down what no longer serves your journey. By creating space inside yourself, you lighten the load. You discover energy that was once trapped in clinging, now free to flow toward growth, creativity, and clarity. Clinging often disguises itself as love. It whispers, if I hold tighter, they will not leave. If I demand more, they will not forget. If I grasp harder, life will give me what I want. But love without space is not love, it is possession. True love breathes. It allows the other to be fully themselves, even if that means walking a different path. To create space in love is to trust that what is authentic will remain without force, and what is not meant for us will naturally fade away. In the same way, clinging to the past is one of the greatest prisons of the mind. Memories are valuable teachers, but when we refuse to let go of what has already gone, we deny the present its power. The mind replays old stories, old pain, old glories, as if they can be relived by holding on. Yet the past has already transformed into something intangible, like smoke rising from a fire. To keep reaching for it is to miss the warmth of the fire that is burning now. Space allows us to remember without being imprisoned, to honor without being trapped. Clinging to the future can also rob us of peace. We grasp at visions, expectations, dreams that are not yet real, demanding that life unfold exactly as we imagine. This form of clinging breeds anxiety because the future is uncertain by nature. By creating space for the unknown, we cultivate trust. We allow life to surprise us, to teach us in ways our imagination could never predict. The future unfolds with more beauty when it is not bound by our rigid grip. The practice of creating space begins with awareness. Notice where you are holding too tightly, whether it is to a person, an idea, a memory, or a fear. Observe how that clinging makes your body tense, your breath shallow, your mind restless. Then gently loosen your grip. Create just a little distance. Allow a little silence. Allow a little freedom. In that space, clarity arises. In that space, peace returns. In that space, life breathes again. Space is the container in which transformation happens. Without space, nothing new can enter. Imagine a room filled to the ceiling with clutter. No matter how valuable something new may be, there is simply no room to receive it. The same is true for our inner world. When we are filled with attachments, resentments, and fears, there is no space for growth, wisdom, or joy to take root. By letting go of what no longer nourishes us, we invite in the possibility of renewal. The paradox is that creating space often gives us more of what we thought clinging would provide. By releasing, we gain. By opening, we receive. By stepping back, we see more clearly. Space allows relationships to deepen naturally. It allows creativity to flourish. It allows the self to expand beyond the narrow boundaries of control. What we try to force by clinging arrives freely when we create the openness for it to appear. In every breath, there is a teaching of this truth. We inhale and fill ourselves with life, but if we try to cling to that breath, it suffocates us. Only by releasing the breath do we make space for the next one. Life too is like breathing. Holding tightly creates suffering, but creating space allows the rhythm of existence to flow naturally. Creating space is not an act of weakness. It requires courage to step back when the impulse is to hold on. It requires strength to trust when the mind demands certainty. It requires wisdom to see that clinging is not safety but a cage. In space, we discover freedom. In freedom, we rediscover ourselves. In ourselves, we rediscover the vastness of life itself. We emotions are among the most complex and fascinating dimensions of human existence. They cannot be held in the palm of your hand, and yet they can weigh down the heart heavier than stone. They cannot be seen with the eyes, and yet they can blur vision and shift perception entirely. They cannot be contained within a single thought, and yet they can dominate the mind and dictate choices more than reason ever could. The mystery of emotions lies in their dual nature, both fleeting and powerful, both invisible and undeniable, both deeply personal and universally human. To understand emotions is not to explain them away, but to sit with them in silence, to watch them arise and dissolve, to notice the way they carve paths within the mind. Emotions can feel like sudden storms, moving in without warning, shifting the entire atmosphere within seconds. Joy can illuminate an ordinary moment and transform it into something eternal. Sadness can stretch time, making minutes feel like hours. Anger can compress space, narrowing vision until nothing else is visible but the object of frustration. Fear can paralyze movement, convincing the body that the safest choice is no choice at all. Yet within this unpredictability lies a hidden order, a language unspoken but ever present. When emotions are seen only as disturbances to be suppressed, their true role remains hidden. They are not intrusions but guides, not enemies but messengers. An unexamined emotion is like an unopened letter. It arrives demanding attention, and if ignored, it lingers, waiting for the moment you are forced to read it. Each emotion carries meaning, not always in words but in the intensity of its presence. It points to a truth within you that perhaps has been neglected or forgotten. The mystery deepens when we realize emotions are not purely individual. They ripple outward, shaping relationships, environments, and even communities. A single person's anger can ignite a crowd. A single person's calm presence can steady an entire room. Laughter spreads faster than thought, and grief can connect strangers who may never speak the same language. This invisible current binds people together, weaving unseen threads through the fabric of human interaction. Emotions are not just internal states but shared energies, constantly exchanged and transformed. There is also the mystery of why emotions linger long after the moment has passed. A word spoken in childhood can echo through decades. A single memory can bring tears as if it happened yesterday. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. The nervous system carries traces of every storm it has weathered, every joy it has held, every fear it has endured. To feel deeply is not only to live through the present, but also to carry echoes of the past and anticipations of the future. The paradox of emotions is that they both reveal and conceal. They reveal the inner state, the trembling voice, the bright eyes, the restless movements, but they also conceal the deeper causes, the roots hidden beneath layers of thought and experience. Anger may show on the surface, but beneath it could lie pain, disappointment, or a wound long unhealed. Joy may burst forth, but beneath it might be a release after enduring struggle. To approach emotions with patience is to begin to unravel the deeper story they are telling. Many try to control emotions as if they were wild animals needing to be tamed. Yet suppression is not control. When pressed down, emotions do not disappear, they wait. They gather strength in the hidden chambers of the mind, and when the right moment arrives, they return with multiplied force. The wiser approach is observation without resistance. To watch an emotion arise and to feel it fully without clinging to it, without running from it, without needing it to stay or to go. This is not weakness, but strength to let the storm pass without becoming the storm. Emotions also carry the capacity to transform energy. What begins as sorrow can open into compassion. What begins as anger can fuel determination. What begins as fear can awaken awareness. Transformation comes not by denying what is felt, but by allowing the raw energy of the emotion to move into a new form. This is the hidden alchemy of the heart, the ability to take what is painful and reshape it into wisdom, to take what is confusing and turn it into clarity. In the silence of observation, the mystery of emotions reveals itself. They are not random intrusions, but essential elements of human existence, shaping the inner and outer world alike. To live without emotions would be to live without color, without music, without meaning. But to be consumed by them without awareness is to drown in their depths, unable to see the surface above. The middle way is not to escape emotions, but to enter them with full presence, to feel their intensity without being lost in them, to listen to their message without mistaking them for the whole truth. The mystery remains because emotions cannot be fully explained by science, nor fully captured by art, nor fully contained by philosophy. They move between these realms, resisting final definition. They are currents in the river of human life, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, always flowing, always shaping, always reminding us that to be alive is not only to think and act, but also to feel in ways that words may never fully describe. When we speak about energy, most people imagine a burst, a surge, something that comes suddenly and leaves just as quickly. They think of moments of inspiration, sudden motivation, or the brief flame of determination that pushes them forward for a short period. But the real strength of energy does not lie in its intensity for a moment. It lies in its ability to remain consistent. The power of energy is not in the explosion, but in the steady flame that burns without ceasing. Consistency of energy is what allows the smallest force to move the greatest obstacle, the softest water to carve through the hardest stone, the most fragile thread to weave into a cloth that can endure for centuries. Energy by itself is neutral. It flows through us and around us all the time. But when energy is directed and sustained, when it becomes consistent, then it takes on a quality that transforms life itself. Imagine a river. A river does not break mountains in a single strike. It moves slowly, gently, consistently, and yet, over time, it reshapes valleys, carves canyons, and nourishes entire landscapes. That is the nature of energy when it is steady. It does not need to be aggressive. It does not need to announce itself loudly. Its quiet persistence makes it unstoppable. The challenge for most people is not accessing energy. Everyone experiences energy when they feel passion, when they feel urgency, when they feel the call of purpose. The challenge is learning how to maintain it, how to avoid the rise and fall, the cycle of excitement followed by exhaustion. This is because most people live in extremes. They run until they are depleted. They push until they collapse. They start with intensity, but lack the discipline of rhythm. They confuse speed with progress and power with sustainability. The truth is, consistency of energy requires a balance between effort and recovery, between movement and stillness, between action and patience. When we look at nature, everything that endures operates in cycles of consistency. The sun does not forget to rise. The seasons do not suddenly abandon their flow. The heart inside your body does not beat only when you remember it. It beats consistently day and night, sustaining life itself. If it were to stop and start according to your moods, you would not survive. This is the lesson of energy. It must become a rhythm, not an impulse. It must become a way of being, not an occasional effort. But how can one cultivate such consistency? It begins with awareness. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy without even realizing it. They scatter it across distractions. They leak it into worry. They burn it in anger. They drain it through constant comparison. The first step is to recognize where energy goes. Energy is like water. If there are holes in the container, it will never stay full no matter how much you pour. Awareness of energy leaks allows you to close them, to direct energy more consciously. Once it is gathered, the task becomes to apply it steadily, not in sudden bursts, but in measured steps. Consistency is not glamorous, it is not dramatic, it is often silent and unnoticed. Yet it is the very foundation of transformation. A person who meditates for 5 minutes every day will gain more than the one who meditates for 3 hours once a month. A person who trains their body steadily will grow stronger than one who trains recklessly and then abandons the practice. A person who speaks truth regularly will be trusted more than one who speaks brilliantly but inconsistently. The universe responds to rhythm, to alignment, to persistence. There is also a deeper aspect to consistency of energy. It is not just about outer practice, but inner stability. If your emotions rise and fall like a storm, if your mind jumps from one thought to another without rest, then your energy will always be scattered. Inner stability is the ground from which consistent energy can emerge. This is why silence, stillness, and discipline are essential. They create a center from which energy can flow continuously. Without this center, energy becomes chaotic, unsteady, easily broken by the smallest distraction. In martial practice, the strongest fighter is not the one who strikes with the greatest force once, but the one who can sustain movement, who can conserve energy, who can flow without interruption. In meditation, the deepest insight comes not from a single profound experience, but from the consistent return to the breath, again and again, until the mind becomes naturally clear. In life, success rarely comes from a single action, but from a consistent application of energy over time. The danger of inconsistency is that it creates doubt within yourself. When you act in bursts and then collapse, you begin to mistrust your own strength. You start believing you are not capable of endurance. You live in cycles of hope and disappointment. But when you act with consistency, even in small measures, you build trust within yourself. You begin to know with certainty that you can rely on your own energy. That trust becomes confidence, and confidence becomes resilience. Consistency of energy is not about perfection. It is not about never missing a step, never feeling tired, never making mistakes. It is about returning again and again to the path you have chosen. It is about carrying your energy forward, no matter how small the steps, no matter how long the journey. It is about understanding that the flow of energy is not meant to be dramatic, but steady, and that in its steadiness lies its true strength. Over time, consistency of energy shapes not only your actions, but your character. It defines how people see you, how you see yourself, how the world responds to you. It becomes a force that others can rely on, a rhythm that harmonizes with the larger rhythm of life itself. Energy is always present, but consistency is what makes it powerful, and it is through that power that transformation becomes possible. Silence is often misunderstood. Many associate it with emptiness, absence, or lack of expression. Yet silence is not the absence of power, but rather its deepest form. In the stillness between thoughts, in the quiet pause before words are spoken, and in the unspoken space within, there lies a strength greater than noise can ever produce. Silence is not a void, but a presence. It carries a weight that is subtle yet unshakable, invisible yet undeniable. When we immerse ourselves in silence, we begin to notice what the noise of daily life hides from us. Our minds are constantly flooded with chatter, distractions, and restless movements. The external world demands our attention, pulling us in countless directions. But silence allows us to withdraw from this endless pull and reconnect with the center that exists within. It is in silence that clarity arises, for the mind no longer runs after every thought, but instead begins to witness them as they are. The power of silence is not about doing more, but about allowing what already exists to come forward. Silence is also the teacher of awareness. In silence, the mind cannot easily escape. It is confronted with its own restlessness, its own need to fill the gap with words, music, or noise. This discomfort is why many avoid silence. They are not ready to face themselves. Yet once we pass through the discomfort, silence becomes the doorway to truth. The noise we constantly create is often a shield to avoid the deeper questions of life. Silence strips that shield away, leaving only what is real. Silence is not passive. It is active, dynamic, and alive. It reshapes the way we experience ourselves and others. Consider a conversation when filled with noise. It can be shallow, rushed, and forgettable. But when silence is embraced within the exchange, it brings depth. A pause between words allows the meaning to sink in, allows emotions to be felt, and allows connection to become genuine. In this way, silence communicates more than words ever could. In silence, energy is conserved. Noise is a form of leakage, a dispersal of focus and vitality. When one lives in constant chatter, energy is wasted. But silence gathers this energy back into the self, concentrating it, amplifying it, transforming it into presence. Presence is not built by speaking loudly or by asserting oneself outwardly. It is built in silence. When a person walks into a room with cultivated silence, their energy speaks louder than any words could. Silence is also healing. The body, the mind, and the spirit all require silence to restore themselves. Just as the night allows the body to regenerate, silence allows the soul to breathe. In silence, tension releases, thoughts settle, and emotions untangle. Many illnesses of the modern age arise from overstimulation, from the inability to be still. Silence counteracts this imbalance by grounding us back into simplicity. When silence becomes part of life, health is no longer only physical, but also mental and spiritual. There is also silence in nature. The mountains hold their silence with dignity. The forest carries silence even when filled with sounds of birds and wind. The ocean, in its vastness, teaches silence through its depth. To observe nature is to learn how silence coexists with movement, how it embraces sound without being disturbed by it. The universe itself moves in silence, expanding, evolving, breathing without the need for constant explanation. To align with silence is to align with the rhythm of existence itself. Silence does not mean the absence of expression, but the purification of it. From silence, words gain weight. From silence, actions gain purpose. A word that arises from silence is like a drop of water in the desert, precious, impactful, and remembered. An action that emerges from silence carries the wisdom of restraint, the patience of stillness, and the clarity of intention. The practice of silence is a discipline. It requires one to set aside time, to sit without distraction, to resist the urge to reach for stimulation. At first, silence may appear empty, boring, or uncomfortable. But with patience, silence reveals itself as full, alive, and overflowing. It becomes a sanctuary, a place to return to again and again, a well from which strength can be drawn endlessly. The power of silence is not limited to moments of meditation or solitude. It can be brought into daily life. To listen deeply without rushing to reply, to walk without needing constant distraction, to breathe without speaking, these are all ways of practicing silence amidst activity. Silence is not something apart from life. It is woven into every action when approached with awareness. In silence, fear loses its grip. Fear thrives in noise, in the stories we tell ourselves, in the endless dialogue of the mind. Silence interrupts that cycle. It does not feed fear, but starves it. Courage is not always loud sometimes. It is found in the quiet confidence that silence provides. When one learns to rest in silence, external chaos no longer disturbs them in the same way. Ultimately, silence is the foundation of transformation. It is where the surface dissolves and depth is discovered. It is where the mind slows, where the heart opens, where the spirit expands. It is where energy gathers and wisdom awakens. Those who know silence do not need to prove their power. It radiates naturally from within. In the world that moves faster every day, calmness is often mistaken for weakness. People assume that to lead means to dominate, to raise the voice louder than others, to push forward with force, and to always appear as the strongest in the room. Yet true leadership does not come from noise, it comes from the stillness within. It is the inner calmness that gives direction, that stabilizes in times of chaos, and that creates the space for others to breathe, think, and move forward with clarity. To lead with inner calmness is not to step back from responsibility, it is to step deeper into responsibility with balance, steadiness, and strength that does not need to shout to be heard. Calmness is not the absence of storms, but the ability to remain centered while storms surround you. Many people spend their lives reacting, rushing, and pushing against the current of challenges. Their actions may seem powerful for a moment, but soon they are exhausted, drained, and uncertain. On the other hand, the leader who cultivates inner calmness is like a mountain. The winds blow, the rains fall, yet the mountain stands unmoved. From that stability, decisions are not made out of fear or anger, but out of clarity and presence. This type of leadership does not collapse under pressure because its foundation is not built on external approval, but on inner balance. Inner calmness begins with self-awareness. One who does not know the movement of their own mind will easily be pulled in every direction by the emotions of others. When a problem appears, the unsteady mind magnifies it, makes it heavier, and spreads the chaos even further. But when awareness is present, there is space between the event and the response. In that space, calmness can arise. And from calmness, the right words and the right actions naturally follow. This is why true leadership is never about controlling others, but about mastering oneself. To lead with inner calmness also means leading by example. Others may not listen to every instruction, but they will always feel the energy that you radiate. If your mind is restless, people will sense it even if you pretend otherwise. If your voice is filled with tension, it will infect the group with stress. But if you remain calm, even in the most difficult moments, you give permission for others to remain calm as well. Your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects the possibility of stability within them. Leadership in this sense is not about commanding, but about transmitting an energy that holds and supports everyone in the space. The calm leader understands that patience is not passivity. It is not about waiting without action. It is about waiting with awareness until the right action becomes clear. Impulsive decisions made in panic may feel like progress, but they often create more problems than solutions. Calmness allows the leader to observe the situation fully, to see hidden details that others miss, and to choose the path that aligns with both wisdom and purpose. This type of decision-making does not come from racing against time, but from standing still long enough to recognize the truth of the moment. Calmness is also deeply connected to the breath. When the breath is shallow and rapid, the mind is restless. When the breath slows, the mind begins to settle. A leader who trains to control the breath naturally controls the state of mind. In times of crisis, others may panic, but one who has practiced calm breathing can return to inner balance quickly. From this place, the leader speaks with grounded energy, and their words carry weight not because they are loud, but because they are steady. Calmness does not demand attention, it naturally receives it. In relationships, whether professional or personal, inner calmness is the bridge that prevents conflict from turning into destruction. When two people argue, often both sides raise their voices, trying to prove who is stronger. But if one person remains calm, the energy shifts. The fire cannot grow without fuel. The calm presence absorbs the aggression, transforms it, and eventually reduces the tension. A leader who embodies this quality does not fight against every challenge, but diffuses the challenge before it grows larger. Calmness, in this way, becomes the most effective form of strength. To cultivate inner calmness, discipline is required. The mind does not naturally remain still. It is pulled by distractions, worries, and endless desires. Daily practices such as meditation, mindful movement, and silence are necessary to train the mind to stay anchored. Just as the body must be exercised to remain strong, the mind must be trained to remain calm. Without training, calmness will disappear the moment life becomes difficult. But with consistent practice, calmness becomes unshakable, like the roots of a tree that hold firm even when the storm bends its branches. A leader guided by calmness also inspires trust. People naturally follow those who radiate stability. They know that in difficult times, such a leader will not abandon them, will not lose control, and will not act from fear. Trust is not built on promises but on presence. When people feel safe in the energy of calmness, they open themselves, share their ideas, and give their best effort. Calmness, therefore, does not only benefit the leader, but it empowers the entire group. It becomes the silent force that unites individuals into a collective with purpose and harmony. Ultimately, to lead with inner calmness is to recognize that leadership is not about force but about flow. It is not about raising yourself above others, but about raising others through your presence. Calmness is the invisible foundation upon which true strength rests. Without it, leadership becomes unstable, reactive, and short-lived. With it, leadership becomes enduring, wise, and transformative.